Today on What's Your Skincare Routine with Leora Luciano, I'm joined by a truly inspiring guest, Deeannah Seymour. She is the founder and CEO of PhD Feminine Health. After 2 decades of working in the pharmaceutical industry, Dee turned a very personal health struggle into a groundbreaking mission. What started as her own search for safe, holistic, science backed solutions for women's health became PhD Feminine Health, a brand that has grown from an Amazon bestseller in 2014 to being carried in over 55,000 retailers across the United States and Canada. Dee has not only created products that improve women's daily lives, she's also become a leading voice in normalizing conversations around vaginal health, breaking stigma, and raising awareness through campaigns like Raise Your Vagina IQ. Most recently, she was recognized by Forbes, highlighting the incredible impact she's making as a leader and innovator in women's wellness. I'm excited to discuss her journey from accidental entrepreneur to award winning CEO, and of course, to hear about her skincare routine. With that, let's get into it. All right. So, Dee, welcome to What's Your Skincare Routine with Leora Luciano.
Thank you for having me.
Let's take a step back and first get into your journey and talk about what inspired you to do this work in women's wellness.
I had spent 20 years in the pharmaceutical industry, loved my job, and had a degree in science. So I felt like it was the perfect fit. And then looking back, I'm grateful that I had a lot of sinus infections. I had this really weird condition that required 2 surgeries and also required me to be on a lot of antibiotics. And as women, we know that when we're on a lot of antibiotics, our flora is disrupted. So I was looking for a holistic alternative for my own feminine care issues that was evidence backed and had some robust scientific data around it. And I found it in this ingredient, boric acid in the form of vaginal suppositories. And they completely changed my life. And truthfully, I felt obligated to bring them, or just to attempt to bring them to market because I knew there were millions of women like myself who could benefit from them. And thankfully, my story is kind of divinely choreographed in that my daughter's coach had a manufacturing facility that made holistic products. So we teamed up together and launched PhD Work as a Fashion Spot Stories were our first item on Amazon in 2014. And within 6 months, they were a bestseller in the category. And it was really something we knew we were onto something because of the velocity, but most importantly, of the reviews of the women who were using it. With boric acid in the US, we market as a cosmetic for vaginal odor. In Canada, we are required by Health Canada to market as a yeast infection treatment. But it was, women prior to this had very limited solutions for these very common feminine health issues. And we provided an alternative that was holistic. And I ended up leaving my corporate job couple of years later, both single mom was using that as my side hustle for a while. And it completely outgrew that. And now, fast forward, we're in 55,000 retail stores, every major retailer in the US and Canada, and now have a complete line of products that are really, really.
That's incredible. So, was the basically your own personal health struggles and concerns that led you in this direction and led you down this path?
Yes, that saying, necessity is the mother of invention. Well, it's so true in my case. Very, very true.
Since launching the brand, have you seen the conversation around feminine health shift? And where are some of those places that we still have work to do?
That's a great question. And, when we entered onto the scene, it really was the legacy brand in the category that had been there for decades. And there had been a lot of innovation that had occurred in feminine care. You go down that aisle in the store, and those major brands that had been around for a long time. And no one was having a conversation centered around these issues that we deal with, particularly vaginal odor. And, you know, the fact that, these vaginal care issues are two of the top reasons a woman will visit a doctor in a lifetime, but yet we're not talking about it and we're not normalizing the conversation. So we have been so proud to be a part of that and part of trying to normalize those conversations and name these things that happen to us and have discussions so that women don't feel the shame and stigma. Been one of the main things that I have learned and the thousands of conversations that I've had with women who are consumers, but also with healthcare providers, that most of the time, when a woman suffers from one of these issues, they think it's their fault. Like they've done something to cause it. And there are so many things that can cause these vaginal health issues. It could be, a wet bathing suit. It could be exercise, medications, your diet, things that are beyond your control, medical issues, eating intercourse or menstruation or menopause. I mean, something we all deal with, but yet that shame and stigma, because it's never been talked about and never normalized, exists. So we noticed early on through our, creating that environment on social, creating a safe space for women to have conversations. Women were tagging their friends, and which we were like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like, let's bring everybody into this conversation. What we've noticed since then is that other brands have come into the fold. We're so grateful and have helped, you know, elevate these conversations and globalize them. But I'll tell you, one of the things that we still struggle with that is incredibly frustrating as a brand, as a CEO, especially in the feminine care space, is that we still find it very difficult to use the right terminology when we're referring to our vagina. We have been shadow banned more times than I can count on Meta and TikTok and other platforms. And interestingly enough, recently I was on a podcast and was talking about these particular issues. And the podcast host talked about the content and was banned, like completely shut down within 30 minutes of being on the platform, and had to work very diligently to get reinstated. But I was like, okay, the irony of it, this is exactly what we're dealing with. And so the fact that we can't have this conversation centered around women's health, we created a television campaign knowing we could say the word vagina. So we used euphemisms like beaver and cootie cat and taco and flower and others. And we found it very difficult to get placements and to be able to air the commercials. So we had to remove the words from the screen that referred to the vaginas that weren't the real name for the vagina. And it was only then that we were able to get it aired, which, like, really, I mean, this is what is happening in this day and age. I'll also have another example that's just it's nuts. We were being featured on a midday show in California, and which is a progressive market. They were highlighting women-owned brands, and we were next to like Kate Somerville Cosmetics, I believe, and they were highlighting our vaginal moisturizing gel. And that's the name of the product, PhD vaginal moisturizing gel. So minutes before this segment was going to be recorded, the producers told the host, like, you can't say the name of that product up in the air. You look, what are you talking about? Like, it's the name of the product. How are we supposed to talk about it? And they're like, sorry, can't do it. So they came back from the break, panned in our product, like, wow, here's a product. Actually, they wouldn't pan in. They had to just saw the two box because they didn't want anyone to read, over lunch, vaginal moisturizing gel. So the hosts were like, well, here's the product. And if you know, you know. Well, no, you don't know. You don't know what it is. You can't even talk about the fact that women are going through menopause and need have vaginal dryness and need a product like this. So that happened, last year. So it's not that long ago. So we still have a long way to go in normalizing these conversations. But we're getting there, and slowly but surely. And I love that so many celebrities and other influencers are coming out and talking about menopause, because it wasn't until not that long ago, like several years ago, that they could even use the word menopause on search engines. So it's we've come a long way, but have a long way to go still.
I know the struggle with saying the word or alluding to women's health issues, especially that are of or related to reproductive organs. But specifically menopause, I didn't realize that that was such an issue. I feel like I have seen more messaging and conversation around it in recent years, probably than 5 years. There's more conversation, but I didn't realize that it was a struggle to get the word through, like the actual word menopause also
Yeah.
through.
Isn't that crazy to imagine? Yeah. So baby steps, but we're getting there slowly but surely.
Yeah, I'm not surprised, but just that alone kind of threw me for a loop because I didn't realize there was so much of an issue with all the words related to women's health. There's a lot of work left to be done. You have a new innovation, the FemGlide, and I wanted to ask you a little bit more about what inspired you to create this product and if you could share a little bit more about it.
Yeah. So we were looking. So first of all, one of our goals is to be that go-to brand for women throughout every stage of their lives. And we were looking at different needs, and one of the ways we develop our products is talking directly to healthcare providers and also our consumers to see, what is it that there's white space in the marketplace, or maybe something in their practice that they are, you know, where they lack. And a lot of women were saying that most of the lubricants out there were really geared towards men. And we were like, okay, well, let's do better. Let's do one that's targeted, directly to women with ingredients that matter to women, to help them. This It's not just women in menopause, but other women that could benefit from a lubricant. So we wanted to add hyaluronic acid, which helps with that moisture retention, and vitamin E, which are proven in vaginal health. So it really is a fantastic product that is geared to women. And a lot of times women don't want to purchase brands that are historically known as the guy's brand. And it was interesting too that I think the stat is 70% of lubricants are purchased by men. And I think that part of that too is maybe a stigma that exists with women in that. So we wanted to be the feminine care brand making a product for women. And it's a fantastic product that I'm very, very happy to have on the shelf. Right now it's available at CVS, but look forward at other retailers next year.
That's great. And that's incredible insight. I didn't realize the purchasing divide with lubricant. So that's a really
Yep.
interesting fact. On the topic of lubricants, specifically, what are some misconceptions or maybe reasons women aren't purchasing them in addition to, maybe shying away from those brands that are a little bit more male centric? Are there some misconceptions about lubricants that you wish women or people in general understood a little bit more?
So oftentimes, people think that there's something wrong with them if they might need a lubricant. Well, that's not the case at all. You know, a lot of women who are even in their 20s and 30s might need a little extra boost when it comes to intercourse and just helping to reduce that friction. And they should not be ashamed at all of feeling the need for a personal lubricant at all. It's very common, and it's can help make, intercourse much more enjoyable for people who do use it. And, I think a lot of times too, maybe it's the placement of in the store where the lubricants are, because it is right next to the condoms. And you walk down that aisle, people cruising by and not really want people to know that they're shopping in the lubricant section. So that's why one of the reasons our lubricant with the hyaluronic acid, vitamin E, and organic aloe, we're having it placed like in the feminine care aisle. So where women can feel comfortable shopping, where they always go to for their feminine care needs, for their washes or their wipes and everything else. So it'll be placed right there so that they can feel comfortable purchasing the product from that section. So there should be no shame involved in needing a lubricant or purchasing one, because it's just a natural process that can also help with comfort, with intimacy.
Yeah. And that being said, you're talking about positioning in a retailer, the physical space where it's located in the aisle in the store. Do you have any insights on e-com, or whether it's third-party retailers or direct to consumer? Do you have any insights there?
Yeah. So with the advent of Amazon, we find that a lot of personal care products are purchased via that platform or Walmart, Target, what have you, because oftentimes to avoid the shame of having to go in to purchase those products, and even period products, we find that a lot of women are going to those platforms to make those purchases. We're grateful now, right, that we have the opportunity to shop discreetly if we need to. So yes, the sales of products online have exceeded our expectations. But even, you know, our product that, says for vaginal odor is sometimes difficult for women to run through the register. So we're very grateful that it is available on Ecom, on Amazon and other platforms, so that women can shop for these products discreetly too. Even though we're trying to remove the shame stigma, it does still exist.
Those are great insights too about the purchase experience, and also just a little bit of that psychology behind the placement in retailers, and then also the e-com experience as well from the consumer standpoint. So I wanted to kind of jump into our next topic. We were talking about being able to share information about women's health, but I specifically wanted to ask you about the Raise Your Vagina IQ campaign, which I was proud to be part
Oh,
of.
thank
And
you.
there were, I was a Vagenius, and
Oh,
not to brag
wow.
too much. That was my test score. But I really think I did get a lot of insight. I have some notes on it because I think, according to the study, you found that 86% of people couldn't identify the vulva on a diagram, and nearly 40% couldn't identify the vagina. Were you surprised by those numbers?
You know, we really were not as a team, because the reason we came up with this campaign and this quiz was because of our experience as a brand and the conversations that we've had with particularly healthcare providers, but also women, that women know more about the anatomy of a frog when they graduate high school than they do of bodies, because we're just not taught. And I feel like one of the reasons we're not taught is because of the shame and the fact that we're not allowed to say the word vagina. So it really, in talking with healthcare providers, OBGYNs and nurse practitioners, they're like, it really becomes an issue when women are seeking care for feminine care issues. And for them to not be able to name the body part where they're having an issue, is a real problem when it comes to advocating for their health and also seeking care. So we really worked with healthcare providers to kind of develop this campaign because it has become a real issue. And we need to normalize and being able to say these words, knowing our bodies, so that we can have, intelligent conversations with our healthcare providers, be advocates for our health, be advocates for our partners' health, our daughters, our mothers, all of those things. There's so many women too that I've spoken with that where they weren't allowed to say vagina growing up. It was like their impala or their, insert whatever. I'm sure everybody has a name for it. And will they will walk into a clinic and say, refer to that euphemism if they're having an issue. So it's we felt it's time now, for us to collectively raise our vagina IQs and dispel the body illiteracy, learn our bodies, learn how beautifully and wonderfully made we are, and name body parts and just make it a normal part of the conversation. We can feel totally comfortable discussing erectile dysfunction on TV, but there's rarely an occurrence where you'll hear a commercial for vaginas. I was thrilled when I'm in the other room and I hear vaginal odor and it's our commercial on TV. I'm like, yes, it's about time. But yeah, as other brands too, I feel like you need to lean into this and start, you know, calling it what it is and really having discussions that make it a safe place for women to discuss their health. Yeah.
And for the women that are watching or listening right now, what would you say is one step that they can take to raise their own vagina IQ?
Yeah, I would love it if they would go to our site and take our quiz and don't be afraid to ask questions and don't be afraid to use the word and use it with your friends. Let's start normalizing word vagina and conversation. It's interesting. I had a lunch with our bakers and they brought up the Times Square billboard where the Raise Your Vagina IQ, where we had the billboard and they were blushing. And I went into the why behind it. And you're like, oh my gosh, we never considered that. As women, what you go through and not being able to talk about the body parts. So it was really cool to see how just in that you know, short amount of time that their viewpoint had changed. And I love what we're doing. I love the onus behind it. And I think it's just really helped normalize the conversation.
That's great. Like I said, I was so excited to be a part of it and just amplify this message because I think it's so important for women, but also for everyone to be more familiar. Like you said, we are aware of anatomy, male anatomy, amphibious anatomy, which I didn't even know. And then women's bodies are like some sort of mysterious unknown entity, and it really shouldn't be
Yeah.
that way.
No, not 30% of our website visitors are men. And which I love because just we are at conferences and interacting general public or healthcare providers. I love when men approach our business, which many, many, thousands have, with inquiries about our products and how they might benefit the loved one, whether it's their partner, their wife, daughters, the dads are like, single dad, help me out here. I love that. And I've had many, many male friends who have taken the quiz too, and I've gotten such a kick out of it. But it just goes to show that we're helping to educate everyone on this, including men. So we're really, really proud to be a part of it.
Yeah, I think it's information and knowledge for everyone. So, with all that being said so far, you've built a brand where you're advocating for women's health actively, and now you've been recognized by Forbes. So, what are some of the habits and mindsets that you think about in terms of your leadership and your business.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I never intended to be an entrepreneur. And it was, like I said, necessity being the mother mentioned. I'm an accidental entrepreneur, if you will. But I also have have learned that, that I've never had a business class in my life, that I know that anything is achievable if you put your mind to. I've had to, because now you have a team of 140 people, and I have to constantly be sharpening my saw too as a leader, really investing in that. I'm very proud and grateful to be in several different communities that help facilitate that. It's Student Entrepreneurs Organization or Women's President Organization, Sim200, and many others that have really put me in rooms with other fabulous, inspiring women leaders that I've learned so much from. Those experience shares have been so valuable to me interacting with other women in business. And so I've leaned into that heavily, knowing that I constantly have to be growing as a leader. And part of that too, to tell you, it deals with self-care, because I was the worst at it for probably the first 4, 5 years on an entrepreneurial journey, head down, just grinding constantly. And my body, that saying, the body doesn't lie. Oh my gosh, it revolted. And there were many, many days I woke up with my eyes swollen shut because I had hives on my face. The stress was just, it had to come out some way, and I was finding a way. And so I realized I had to take control of that and be better. So I've since joined a women's gym, and with this morning I got up at 5, because if I don't get my workout in the morning, I'm not going to do it. But it kind of ebbs and flows. But I've really tried to maintain investing in myself, in my physical fitness, which helps mental fitness as well, and my ability to lead at the.
Love that. I was not expecting you to connect leadership and self-care like that. That is really inspiring to hear.
Thank you. Yeah, if I don't take care of me, then I can't lead. So
Yeah, absolutely true. You mentioned fitness. What else do you include in your self-care routine?
yeah, I am really big into prayer meditation. It helps center my thoughts for the day and prepare me for what's ahead. But also love spending time with my family, of course, and my friends. It's a huge part of how my tank is filled. And, I'm was really, really intentional about creating time and space for those that are important to me. Even though last year I traveled 216 days of the year, that I'm
Oh my
always
goodness.
keep, I always make time for those people that are my foundation and my rock. So,
Well, we talked about self-care, and when it comes to personal care, I always ask, it's the title of the show, what's your skincare routine? So, Dee, would you mind sharing with us? Could you share what's your
wow.
skincare routine?
Happy to. I'll start with the evening. Gun cleanser and Fairmount. I use the Zoe and their toner, and I actually suffer from rosacea and have for a long, long time. So they make the cream that I use that starts with an R right now, and I can't think of the name of it, but
Okay.
it's specifically for rosacea. I also use my Retin-A, and then a serum and a moisturizer for the evening, and then in the morning, the same cleanser. And I am diligent about using vitamin C, the liquid vitamin C drops. That is been a game changer for me. And then I also miss my serum and moisturizer and eye cream in the morning. And I'm a huge fan of derma rolling. I've done that now for many, many years, and I feel like it's helped me maintain that collagen production. I've been a huge fan.
How might you consider, thinking about your vaginal health and incorporating that as part of your self-care routine or, you know, part of your skincare routine?
Absolutely. So, our bodies change over time, and we'll have different needs in our 20s than we will in our 40s and 50s and beyond. And we just need to understand that aspect alone, and that our skin will change because of our hormones, hormonal changes that occur, and our vaginal moisture. And oftentimes the flora in the vagina can change over time as well. So it's important to be educated about potential changes, when they might occur and what might cause them. So in addition to that, we have different pH levels in all parts of our body, and particularly on our vulva, which is outside of our vagina. And so if you're using certain cleansers or your soaps that aren't pH balanced for that area, they could cause some irritation. So if you are, particularly if you're susceptible to being off balance, then it's worth the money to spend on a cleanser that is pH balanced and designed for that area of the body. And of course, we happen to have one that's wonderful and very intentional about those ingredients, all plant based. So it's really important to not use those synthetic flavors and other things. Can really throw off your internal vaginal pH, because it is likely that some of that's wanting to work its way up into the vaginal canal. So when we can avoid that, why not do that? And also, learning that to be in tune with our bodies and to know what's normal for you. It might not be normal for your friend, but what is normal for your body? And, you know, every vagina has its own scent, if you will. And no, it does not smell like roses. But you have to learn what is normal for you and be in tune with your body so that you'll know when something is off. And we always say, if you do feel like something's off, consult your healthcare provider, because it may be an indication of something greater that needs to be treated. Oftentimes, your healthcare provider will recommend the boric acid suppository, which we thankfully are the number one doctor recommended brand, and with the first brand on the market. So incorporating that into your vaginal care routine could be very beneficial. Many women will use a suppository, for vaginal odor maybe once a week to help to keep everything in check, or maybe after intercourse or after their period, if those are triggers for them for getting vaginal odor. And many times, talking about the different changes in our lifetime, women who will do perimenopause or menopause will often experience vaginal odor for the first time in their lives. They might need a PhD suppository to help them at that stage. And then also during that time too, of course, our body's not producing the amount of moisture that it used to. So our vaginas were a little drier, need a little bit more help in that regard. So we do have a fabulous vaginal moisturizing suppository that Will Springs. Vitamin E and coconut oil, it's fabulous. Or the vaginal moisturizing gel that I was referring to earlier that has the hyaluronic acid and vitamin E. So there's many alternatives out there for women, just really to know when these changes occur, let's think about what's happening with our bodies, be open to, looking for these solutions, and don't wait, talk to your health provider and go look for them down that aisle online, because there are solutions out there.
Yeah, I love that advice. So, in addition to the products you just mentioned at like FemGlide and
Yes.
even taking the Vagina IQ quiz, where can people do that?
Yeah, so they can go to phdfemininehealth.com to take the quiz. They can find our products at Walmart, Target, CVS, Walgreens, and then every major grocery chain in the US, probably leaving out some, and then also, of course, on Amazon too. And then they can find us on social. We've got some great tips and we do a lot of education on women's health. So we'd love for you to follow us on PhD Feminine Health.
And what is next for PhD Feminine Health? Are there any upcoming launches or initiatives that you might be able to share?
Yes, I'm so excited. We've got some great things happening. And one of the things that really differentiates us as a company is our focus on research. And we have some really big research projects happening right now. One in particular will be published in a couple months. And I'll just say it's a little teaser on the importance of creatine hydrochloride and menopause. So more to come
Ooh.
on that, but it's significant results that they look for products coming very, very soon to coincide with the launch and the publication study in a very reputable journals. Those are the couple of things that are
Oh,
coming out. And then we also will have several big fund launches next year too. So look for those.
okay. That is really exciting news. But I wanted to ask if you could leave our viewers, listeners, one message about feminine health. If there's one takeaway from this conversation today, what would that be?
Okay, that's a fabulous question. I think it would be to start the conversation. Start the conversation around feminine health with your girlfriend, and you will be shocked at how willing and open everyone is to join in on that conversation. Because it's like a veil has been lifted. I can't tell you how many times women or men just know what I do, and they feel completely safe and comfortable talking about all aspects of their health with me, which I love. But it's like people are longing for an outlet to have these discussions. So be a conversation starter, encourage your friends to take the quiz, and then talk about the results and talk about your experiences because it's a community, right? And we just need to embrace everyone in it and make sure that they feel safe in having these conversations.
That's awesome. Thank you
And it's
so
great.
much, Dee, for being here today and joining us and having this
And
incredible conversation.
thank you so much for having me. I've loved speaking with you. And thank you for your support of our campaign and our company. We're just very, very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll have to have you back on soon.
Love that.